Hi everybody, this is Ren Sarah and The Quiet,
Hello there.
and we are here today to talk about Art is the Weapon. We also have wonderful solo shows that are through Monday. We've got Seda Indian, Elise Wyman, this is Michael Becker, and we also have Suzanne Budd, very beautiful abstract paintings, and Don Paglia in the South Gallery with Gravity Defying Sculptures. So check it out before Friday, or on Fridays, good. And so I'd like to introduce The Quiet, who is a TAG member, and he just had a solo show a couple of months ago.
Yeah,
Last
first part of June.
First part of June, okay.
Yeah.
And it was called Radio Silence, and it was a very large show,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not
Is
even
it-
aware of how many pieces. Do you know how many pieces were in there?
I probably 30-ish,
More.
more, yeah. 40-ish.
Yeah.
I think I bought 55 and bought a handful home, so somewhere between 30 and 50 maybe.
Okay.
You can say that. Yeah.
So I'd love to hear your perspective on how that went, how you, you know, all the elements that went into it, what you expected and what you know, kind of got out of it.
Yeah, thank you. Number one, thank you for hosting this, and thank you to TAG for giving us this opportunity. Thank you to Mark and Layla for their work behind the scenes here. The solo show for me, that was the first solo show that I had done. So I was only familiar with the group show style format, and there's enough apprehension just seeing your work among fellow talented creatives. But it's a whole different thing when the room is filled with your own work. And for me, it was very revealing, because my own creative process, I don't create things in some sort of conscious sequence. I'm creating them very much, if I find something, or I see something, or I experience something, maybe a lot of my work is assemblage found work. So literally I could walk outside onto Wilshire here and I could find an abandoned piece of board, and I might bring it home, and it might inspire me to use it in a creative way. Or a lot of my work is me trying to make sense of the world around me. So it's things that I see or things that I read about. But they're all done sort of compartmentalized. They're not done in a series or in a sequence, or I don't work in that fashion. So it was, at first it was unsettling to bring all your work into a space like this. And I really have to thank the gallerist here for assembling it in a cohesive vision. I had never approached my own work that way, because when you do a group show, your piece is hanging around other pieces, and it maybe thematically might work, but it's different when it's all your work. And it's the first time I looked at it, it sort of taught me how to look at my work that way. And is there a theme that is woven through it, or is there an emotion that sort of comes out of it when you see your work en masse like this? And I as I said, the team here saw it pretty quickly, and they kind of taught me about my own message, because it was unique to see everything together. It's the first time outside of seeing it just stacked up in my studio, which is not the appropriate way to see anything. It's more just a story. So to see it sort of thematically presented was thrilling, really, and it was a great education. It was almost like looking in the mirror, and that was fun. That it taught me a lot. And then of course, you know, when the public sees it, I'm always, you know, the things that, it's interesting because the things that I'm really pleased with, the things that from start to finish, I feel like, boy, that I nailed. That's exactly how I saw it in my head, and it's exactly what ultimately is in front of me. And those things I'm sort of attracted to more than other things where, for whatever reason, I don't feel quite, you know, I said to someone once, when do you know you're done? And their answer was, well, you're never really done. And that was a bit alarming, you know, so I'm kind of done when I just feel maybe bored of it, or I'm on some sort of deadline and it's done. And those kind of things quite often I'm not happy with, I'm not content with. But oddly, in this environment, the things that people were attracted to were some of the things that my own work I wasn't attracted to. So it was really a fascinating sort of social experiment, and really a mind experiment for me to let that go, you know, and put yourself out there and don't have any kind of connection to things, because people, it's what I'm attracted to is people come up to you and they say, oh, I know what you were thinking when you did this, because it speaks to me. And inside I'm going, I'm not quite sure I knew what I was thinking. So tell me,
Right.
what does it mean to you? And it was my most favorite thing about the entire experience was having those conversations and have people say, it brought me back to this place or to this time, or reminded me, the title reminded me of this experience. That was profound for me. I mean, I wish I could do it every day, because I would just sit in here and just observe and interact with people that way. So it was, and again, the team here made it was a little daunting. You know, you fill up, I rented a 9-foot U-Haul, and I filled it literally like 8 feet, 11.5 inches. And you show up here and it's like, whoa, this is going to be a crazy difficult thing to do. But the technicality of it, I mean, this is the real deal here. Everybody knows what they're doing, and made it so easy, both the coming in and the going out. So I appreciate that too.
Cool, that's great. Yeah, it was a very unusual exhibit. It did present challenges for the gallery. It was like we had the cones and the things, and it was very, very full, right?
Yeah.
But it was an amazing experience for everyone who walked through it
Yeah,
and
well, it's
engaged
kind of
with
good to say
pieces.
thank you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was an exhibit that elicited conversation and connection, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And that's what art should be about, right?
Yeah, agreed. That's really
For
my
sure.
mission. And that makes me
Yeah.
feel great you saying that, because that's all I want to do. I want to be provocative. I want to, you know, the thing that upset me most was people who would walk by a wall and not stop and look at anything, you know, and that, that to me, I feel like is a failure. You know, I want their attention to be grabbed, and I'm less interested in the emotion that it elicits, because some people tell me, you know, they're angry at what I do, or they're vehemently against it, you know. And I'm A-okay with that, as much as people who say, wow, I really connected with this, you know. All I want is to be provocative in a healthy way. I want people to contemplate. I want them to look inward. I want them to look outward. I want them to feel something. I don't want someone to just walk by and, you know, stare at the wall as if, you know, it was a window or something like that. That's the thing that, to me, I feel like, oh, darn, I didn't succeed, you know. But that's just my own, you know, that's what motivates me to do what I do.
There were pieces in your show that I felt had mixed messages. The one that I actually pulled was of a Native American with the F word above it. I believe in free speech, but I also think that I've had enough experience in this gallery that there are artworks that can go exactly in the opposite direction than
Yeah.
you intend, right?
Yeah, understand.
It's gotten really, so bad that there was actually a skinhead who bought an artwork with a Confederate flag on it.
Yeah, right.
So it's a real issue when you're getting into symbols
Yeah,
of other cultures and other than your own.
yeah,
I've experienced critiques on my own work because sometimes I portray people of different backgrounds,
right.
and I've learned to always assert that that is because these people are in my life,
Right.
and that's why I'm representing them. Right?
Yeah, right.
Some of the objects you pick up, I think, you may not understand the history behind them. The piece that you had, White Fragility,
Yeah,
had dolls in it that I'm not even sure you were aware that people had like rearranged them to be offensive.
yeah,
And so that, I think it's important as an artist, especially in our situation.
yeah,
This is a privilege, that we get to show here, and we have to be very mindful of the way that our work can change, the way that our work can affect people.
yeah.
And nobody said anything
Mm-hmm.
to me about the different things, but I had enough experience here to know that there are real issues,
Yeah.
for people. And I don't know if you don't mind talking about the anger that you experienced.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I don't necessarily agree with everything you're saying, but that's, again, my work it's very personal. It comes from, it's a way for me to work things out in my head, and you're perceptive to say, I sometimes I get a mixed meaning that I'm contemplating as you're saying that. It's because in my own mind, I don't, I haven't worked through it. A lot of my work is a way for me to work through those things in my head, and I don't. It's a complicated, complex world. It's not so easy to figure things out very cleanly. This is my way, my motivation to let my creativity out is really primarily kind of a selfish thing. It's to attempt to make sense of things for me in my own mind. And to me, it's an added benefit that on occasion people say, oh, that connected with me. And sometimes, as I said, it's in disagreement, sometimes it's in agreement. And I'm okay with that. My bottom line is, art as a business is a business, but creativity is not necessarily a part of that business. So, you have to make a decision of, the business of art puts you in a box, and you have to decide, do you want to stay in that box or not? In order to be successful, you have to understand where the boundaries are. I guess maybe I'm not necessarily interested in being super successful, so I'm less worried about where those boundaries are. And then, of course, as I said to you and the folks in charge here, this is your gallery, it's not mine. So
No, it is yours.
at the end, well, in a way it is, but the rules, I'm not making the rules. The things that I would do are different than, I'm a pusher. I'm a pusher of the boundaries. I want exactly your response. I want you to go, I don't know if he gets it because I'm agitated by it. Why would he want that hanging on the wall? for me,
Yeah.
that's exactly what I want. That's what I want. I want that,
Yeah.
Now, that, right, contradicts with, well, look, we want people to come in here and we want them to buy things and we want them to have a certain experience. So, the line has to be drawn. I mean, I get it. I don't necessarily approve of it. But at the end of the day, you're right. It's a privilege to be here. And, I didn't push too hard on things. But at the same point, I was super happy that that's where we were, because that's, if you were feeling it, right, as a very in tune creative person, I'm sure other people were feeling the same thing. And to me, that makes me go, yeah, right, Because here's my thing, I'll give you just a little bit of background, that's a found piece, a really an outdated sort of stereotypical piece that I wanted to speak to that. I wanted to speak to the romantic and maybe not so romantic version of, the native savages, that is so proven to be wrong. And I wanted to speak to that, and the fact that it kind of created a ruckus.
Well, the image
I'm
was
speaking out of both sides of my
yeah.
mouth, right?
The image was actually of a chief, not a savage.
Yeah, understood. But,
Yeah. So it was an image of pride, almost like like the images that we used to see on TV about
that's right.
The Native American cares about the environment.
That's right.
Fires, and that's not a bad
No.
thing.
Oh, no,
and I
no.
think that's true in life.
No, not at all. But
So,
it's just my comment on the way the indigenous peoples of North America have been treated and have been portrayed in art as this very noble people. But the reality is they were not treated like noble people. The invading forces did not treat them like noble people, and that's my way of working through that and trying to maybe shed some light on, history to me is really, it's in the eye of the person who writes it and the person who speaks it. So it means that you have to look at it from that perspective. And as a kid of white privilege, I grew up with a certain history that was fed to me, and it's just like my way maybe now of being older and maybe a little bit bolder of trying to correct that in my own head. That's all. And that's where my creativity, it's part of my learning process. I do it in a boundless sort of pool, but I have to understand that the pool does have boundaries. And that was, that's one of the things that coming out of this was a good education for me, to understand the business of art,
It's really, for me, it really is about meaning. And so, I think that for that piece, the meaning was like, actually the first time I saw it, I thought, that's interesting that he used a chief instead of a Native American woman, because the women are actually being, although that would be very inappropriate also, but in that, the way you meant it, that they're being treated badly.
Yeah.
It's actually the women that have been disappearing, and so I just felt like I just didn't understand what you were getting at in that sense, and I do have friends who are revered in Native American communities, so that was personal too. I think that it was really about like what it means today for me.
Yes.
Not like my history. I mean, I was very educated about the Trail of Tears and all of the sordid history of disease and all that the massacres of buffaloes and all of that, So it's like, of course, that I just didn't know what it meant today in
Yeah.
that sense,
Uh-huh.
you know. So so that was a big motivator too on that.
Yeah.
one.
Like I said, I feel like and I don't mean this in a disingenuous way, but I'm so happy that it evoked that in you. I really am. That's
Yeah.
it's my mission, because none of these issues are really clear cut, and they're very based on your own experience and your own histories and your own understandings
And what people have said to
Yeah.
me about,
yeah, right.
like terrible things people have said to me
Yeah.
about me.
Yeah. So
Sorry?
I mean this in a very sincere way. This is what I want to do. I want my work to. I want it to be motivating that way, to have dialogue and ask questions. And I don't, I don't profess to have the answers. In fact, I will say, I'll be the first one to say I don't have the answers. But it's helping me in my own head. And like I said, if it stirs up something inside people, then, I mean, for me, that's my own narrow definition of what art is. It has to stir up something in you. And sometimes, I'm fascinated by the discussion right now about some of the greats that we all have grown up revering, and, kind of putting them in a new lens. And that's such a worthwhile discussion, because as we evolve and as our experience as a society evolves, we should constantly be doing that. We should constantly be saying, who are our idols and who are our icons, and if we're going to look at them differently, what does it say about us, and what does it say about them? In totality, really, is where are we as a society right now? Like, where are we? I think art is one of the greatest bellwethers to get a read on that. I'm a huge street art fan, and we could walk up and down Wilshire here, and we could get a really good idea of kind of what is LA feeling right now. You would sort of, you get a pretty good complete feel pretty quickly, and that's I'm trying to bring that, the whole traffic cone things and all of that. I was trying to bring that vibe into the walls of the gallery, and it,
Right.
some of it did not fall well, and I understand it, because that's out there. This is in here. Part of my attempt was to break that wall down and to say, look, it's everywhere, it's all around us, it's just not in here. So, just get in tune with that. If you're not comfortable with it, okay, but just kind of get in tune with that. Don't just drive down the street and,
But it's like that kind of thing we experience all the time in LA, kind of, right?
Yeah, not always, right? Like I drove from DTLA over here, and you drive through, certain neighborhoods that,
Don't have cones?
no, they're filled with street art. Filled with it. You go 2 blocks in either direction, and there's none of that. There's finely manicured lawns and Volvos in the parking spot. So
There's lots of cones where I live.
yeah, this time of year, yes. This time of year, yeah. And for me, it's all it's part of a grand experiment. I'm not afraid to fail, and I'll be the first to admit some things I did here were failures, and that's all right. The only reason I am going to mature creatively is to take that, risk, and to be met with no. Oh, okay, why? Well, here's why. Okay, and as I said, I'm not, I'm just not in a position, nor do I want to be, to say, well, look, it's my way or the highway,
Well, I think your exhibition succeeded, for sure.
Yeah.
It
Well,
did.
thank you. Yeah, thank you.
And I just have my own you know.
I'm so happy. Look, I'm so happy we're doing this just to hear that directly from you. I really am, and I mean that sincerely. I really do.
So, and I just want to like kind of, I'm rooting for you, really. Like,
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I don't take it. I'm in such a mature place in my life. I only take this as learning. I really do. So
cool.
I greatly appreciate it.
So the other thing, let's go back to the cones.
Yeah.
I want to get into more of like the aesthetics and your process and your technique.
Yeah.
I wanted you to just go like to touch everything.
Yeah.
Like, and so I was curious about like how sometimes your art would be kind of cold, like just a photograph on aluminum, and then you would have like, and I've kind of adopted this a bit in my own artwork, where you would have the typed out, you know.
Yeah.
Which is cool. I don't know what machine you have for that old.
Yeah, it's the old school.
Yeah,
it is. You can still get the old school. I mean,
still
remember
get
as a kid, you know, we got those as stocking gifts, and we would label everything in the house, you know, fridge, wall, closet, you know, like you thought that was the coolest thing ever, you know.
So that was very tidy and clean and cool.
Yeah.
And then you would have right next to it, you know, scrolling over.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like.
Yeah, what's going on? What's going on here?
Where are you?
Who did this? Someone else must have done this.
You know, and then so there was that sort of thing. And then you didn't seem to, as far as I know, touch the cones at all. Like there was no mark on it from you. There was no stamp or, and I kind of see that.
Yeah.
Because why, right? Then you talk about why.
Yeah. I mean, really, just to
I
said to the galleries.
When you drop it off.
Yeah, because what they mean, you know, like what they mean is, you know, pay extra attention, and that angers us. Like, I'm going to have to slow down. I'm going to have to pay attention. I'm going to have to change my routine and get off here and take some detour. Like, that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted people to walk in the door and go,
and be uncomfortable.
This is not going to be 8 pictures on the wall. It's not going to be that. I better get engaged with what it is, you know.
And then the one that just keeps kind of coming back in my head is the old, I guess you found the old landscape painting.
Yeah.
And then you, in the same way as your other scrawls, you scrawled art across that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean?
Maybe I'll answer your question. Maybe I won't. But I'll tell you that I'm a huge fan of modern art, and I love going to modern art exhibits and modern art museums with non-fans of modern art, because it's like, all right, let's start the stopwatch, and how long is it going to take for someone to say, I could do that? You know, it inevitably happens, you know,
that's true.
I could do that. Like, wait a minute, is that a bucket and a mop? Did the janitor leave that there? Or is that a piece of art, you know? And I you know, what we define as art, you know, do we have to put it in a frame, and does it have to adhere to certain, you know, certain rules and regulations? I guess that was my way of rebelling against that, and saying, hey, this is art, and I have to be so direct. I am writing art across it to tell you that it's art, you know. And you know, maybe a little bit satirical, maybe you know, a little bit, you know, poking people to maybe get them to just chuckle a little bit and go, oh, ha ha.
So
you know.
when you took this old painting
Yeah.
and you decided to paint art,
Yeah.
What was that like? What was that emotion for you?
I don't know if there was, I guess the emotion was kind of glee, and I just thought, I saw it, and I'm a big spray painter, the first thing I did was I spray painted the frame a super bright color, and then I put the picture back in, and it just, it looked different, right? It was a thrift store find. It was, some very standard, Swiss Alp landscape that probably in the 70s hung over somebody's fireplace, and that's cool. But there it is in a Goodwill, like what's going to happen to it? And I feel a little bit like the Goodwill Lone Ranger, like I'm rescuing these things that once had a voice. Somebody once put it someplace and it meant something to them. And for whatever reason, it's lost that value, and it's just stacked up among a bunch of junk in the Goodwill counter, in the Goodwill racks. And I find so many things there that inspire me, right? Like it's such a sad thing to say that my creativity comes from Salvation Armies and Goodwills and garage sales, and
That's wonderful.
I want to contemporize it. I want to give it a new meaning, and that it just struck me as, I want people to know that this is art. I don't want them to look at it and go, I could do that, or maybe they will look at it and go, I could do that, and if that's the case, so be it. But I want them to look at it, right? Like I wanted them to look at it and give it meaning.
Do you remember the title of that one?
No. Oh, that is
Yeah.
called, that is called, Is This Satire? Question mark. Is this satire? Question mark.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like that, like satire there's a subtlety to it, and maybe this was more Sledgehammer satire, but it makes me laugh when somebody goes, "Is that satire?"
I don't think it is, because I didn't think it was, because the way you talk about it, you were saying that you had this kind of love for the original, and that you spruced it up. And then you labeled it, so that people know.
Yeah.
And so it's not satire. It's nothing like what I initially read it as.
Yeah.
I think it's actually a kind of devotional object
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah, right.
So
No denial. I could talk to you about every one of my works, because that's what I want to elicit. It really is less about, it's sort of me working it out and then putting it up there and then watching and listening and just being so happy when people,
That's great.
It's
like when I shared this talk, I quoted Friedrich Hegel, who talks about art and talks about, I'm a big fan of just his philosophy in general, because he talks about how life is like a thesis and an antithesis. Everything is always in the opposite, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And then we're always living in this synthesis of both. And so when you were saying that you don't know what you're doing, that you have this passion, it just fits right into how he discusses what brings art into being, and that that's how we learn, that's how we see ourselves, that's how we understand, our lives are, the way we are processing things. So it's really cool to hear you just saying that so clearly.
I came to this very late in life. I was a creative kid, but I wasn't raised in a household where you were encouraged to be creative. I grew up in the 1970s Long Island, where you got on the school bus, you went to school, you came home, you did your homework, and you weren't encouraged to find creative outlets. My mother just said, get out of the house, go play stickball in the street, because you're driving me crazy in the house. there wasn't, sort of a structured, oh, here are crayons, here are paints, let's go to the museum, But I gravitated towards that because I had it inside me. And I didn't pursue it until a little over a year ago.
Did you collect art?
Yes, yeah. But I always, if I could, I would always do something creative for school projects, right? Like if there was an option, you can write a paper, or you can make a map, or you can do a diorama, or you can, make a poster. I would always choose that option, but it was never encouraged, it was just sort of like, oh, you gotta be on that? Well, that's a cute little shoebox diorama, and that was kind of the extent of it, And not until, and I always, like a lot of my assemblage work, I had the pieces of it for years, I'm the kid who finds the shiny penny and I pick it up, like I'm very aware of my surroundings, and if I see something, I have to have it. I either put it in my pocket, or it's the reason I drive a pickup truck, so I can pull around the side of the road and I can put traffic cones in the back of the truck. That's just the way I work. And I had all this stuff stacked up, and I just got to a point where I wasn't able to verbalize how I was feeling about what was going on in the world, and I needed a way to do it that, didn't make me howl at the moon at night, like I needed a healthy outlet.
Yeah.
And I just started to assemble things and work through things, and it started to kind of make sense. Like, oh, I feel not better, but I feel maybe a little more at ease, a little more balanced. You get tired of just arguing with people and shouting at each other, and it's where my art name comes from. I just decided I'm going to sideline all of that, and I'm going to work through my creative side to feel some sort of balance on how I see the world, and here I am.
Fascinating. Because your work is very loud.
Yeah, well, and that's part of it too, right? Like people who know me go, quiet. That's like the worst. That's the last word I would use to describe you. And I go, that's my
it's what you want.
It's my whole point.
And
I don't want you to
cool.
judge me as a 60-year-old white male of privilege. I don't, because then everything you look at, you go, oh, well, look, this is where he's coming from, because this is his perch. I don't want that, I don't, I've learned to use Instagram. I never really understood social media very much, but I don't put a lot of pictures of myself on social media, and people inquire, like, who are you? Are you a man? Are you a woman? Who are you? And I want that, I want that. I want people, I don't want them to judge it from where it comes. I want them to judge it from the receiving, how they're receiving it, I want that.
I would encourage you to be who you are. Like, I don't think you have to hide. I think that,
it's not, I don't mean to interrupt, but it's not hiding. It's just, I don't want to be prejudged. I don't want it, I want people to come at it from their perspective. I don't want to stand next to it and have them, because this is the world we're in. They're gonna make a pretty fast judgment basis who the creator of it is, and I would rather that be a very neutral palette, because I think it makes it more truthful in its analysis, and that's what I'm more interested in. I'm not interested in going, well, my big statement is this, because frankly, when people ask me, I'm like, well, this is what I was feeling, and this is what I was trying to get across, and like you said, some people say, you know what, I don't think you succeeded. I think you actually were more offensive than, and I go, well, all right, thank you, because maybe I don't understand it enough that I have to learn more about it. That's, it's like my art therapy in some ways, and it just happens, I'm brave enough now to do it out in public, which, maybe is going to get me in trouble. I don't know, but,
No.
that's where I find myself. And I feel at times, okay, if I can stir people up in a way that is not, I said agitation. Agitation to me is more like anger, like I'm stirred up because I'm angry. I want people to get stirred up because they've been provoked to sort of process in their own mind, like, okay, is this offensive? Is it not? Are they making a statement about racism, or is it racist? I don't know,
Yeah.
I want that workout to happen because I think, to me, it should be more a mirror, like some people, like I said, they walk into SF MoMA and they go, that's art, it's just a black dot on a big white canvas, or, whatever,
Yeah.
I don't, I want people to go, why did he do that? What's going on here, And if they walk away, then I feel like I wanted to grab them more and I didn't, And not that I, therefore need to be that much more outrageous, because it's not the way I'm working. I'm sounding more like I should be on Jackass or something like that, but I'm not. That's not what I'm trying to do. I just want to, I want people to think about their how do they feel about contemplating.
Contemplate the issues you bring right? Yeah. So one thing that is very, very prevalent in your work is the religious symbols.
Yeah.
Particularly Christian. Right?
Yeah.
So what is that message?
That is a direct reflection of my upbringing. I was raised a very strict Roman Catholic, and you never asked any questions. You never said, why are only men priests? Why are there no girl altar? Why is only altar boys? Why is Santa Claus a man? Why can't that priest is talking about raising children, but why can't that priest be married? And the answer always was, because that's the way it is. And you get to a point where you start to think for yourself, and you say, that's not good enough. I want a more satisfying answer. And you're told that's the only answer you're getting. And if you think there's a different way, then, well, you're going straight to HE double hockey sticks, because you couldn't even say hell in your household, So that kind of repressed intellect, I'm clearly working. I'm clearly working through that in my head. And I think the other thing that really has bothered me is the politicizing of religion, and all of the so-called moral issues have become political issues, and our politicians have to hold up a Bible in order to communicate that, oh no, I'm guided by this, that a lot of that feeling, the hypocrisy and
The control.
that's coming out. Like, that's just me working through decades of that feeling, and it just has come back to the surface, with everything going on in the political world. Like, we're the church and we're politics and we're social issues. There's just no separation. Everything is used just to hammer home, you're either with us or you're against us.
It's interesting because, again, it's kind of like the Hegelian concept of the thesis and the antithesis.
Right.
So the fact that we've moved into this place where Roe v. Wade is not on the books anymore, and people are worried about access to abortion.
Yeah.
There's been this rise in awareness among non-religious people.
Right.
It wasn't an issue for non-religious people.
Yeah.
So now it's going to flip again because because of the movement to that extreme,
Yeah.
to that antithesis, it's gonna
Yeah.
move again, which is a good thing,
Yeah,
you know,
let's hope,
but
yeah.
it's like, it's so weird that
Yeah.
it gets this, crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
so
younger generations are
I
much more transparent on the way they
Agreed.
see things.
yeah, agreed, but my own children they'll tell you they're very spiritual, but they're not religious. They draw a very defining line between the personal definition of spirit and the sort of institutional definition of religion, and they have all bucked the institution and have embraced the personal definition, and I have said, rock on, that's awesome. Because at the heart of it, that's what matters. So a lot of my early work was very, very heavily religious, kind of like iconography. Because I also, what struck me, I was originally a vintage camera collector. The reason I went into Goodwills and to garage sales and antique places was I collected Polaroid cameras. And, you could go on eBay and you'd pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for these vintage Polaroids. You'd go into a Goodwill and you'd find it for $5, So I would always, when I was traveling in my business life, I would always stop at these places and look for vintage cameras, because I got to know, what was worth, things. It's the classic, one person's junk is another person's treasure, And it always struck me as odd that we could go around the corner to the Goodwill. I'm guaranteeing there'll be quite a bit of religious iconography in there. And it always struck me as odd that such revered images and such revered characters are, on a shelf next to I Love LA mugs and, Beanie Babies. Their meaning, has just been completely stripped from them. And why do we let that happen? And what does it say about, kind of idol worship? And I'm sure it affected me in way too deep a way, probably more than anybody would ever really think to worry about. But it just, it struck me like, all right, there's Mary and Joseph and baby Jesus, on the shelf next to a stuffed, rainbow unicorn doll. Like, what does it say about us, So again, I kind of felt like, all right, I'm gonna take this back. I'm gonna give it meaning, because it's clearly lost its meaning. Whoever disposed of it, and how could you just put it in a box of stuff and bring it to Goodwill? And I couldn't wrap my head around that. So I started to buy these things, and frankly, some beautiful pieces. Like artistically really beautiful things.
Yeah.
That I said, okay, I'm going to take them. I'm going to contemporize them. If the world is, if our president has to hold the Bible up as the way of explaining who he is, then I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to take these things and I'm going to subvert them. And I'm going to talk about women's rights. And I'm going to talk about LGBTQ plus rights. And I'm going to use them in a way to work through, which is kind of what the opposite is, right? Which is wrap myself, in the holier than thou sort of, I'm, it's like Trump is my president, Jesus is my Lord. Like, those go hand in hand. Do they really go hand in hand? I wanted to kind of take that attitude and turn it around and say, okay, well, what if Mary and Joseph had a gay child? How would they approach this world? Let's contemplate that, and kind of turn it around and say, all right, if you're going to use it for that way, then I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to use it in the exact opposite way. And but clearly from an angry space, and I have got, people who know me well, including my wife who knows me the best has said, you've got a lot less angry in your work. And I think that's because a lot of the issues that were bugging
We've worked
me,
out, yeah.
I've worked through.
Yes.
Yeah, I've worked through.
Me
So,
too, like my work has become less angry
yeah,
because I worked it out,
yeah.
yeah.
Not that I'm completely without anger, but I feel like I succeeded in doing what I wanted to do, which was to be at peace, not in agreement, but be in peace, and be a better listener and understand all of the kaleidoscope of issues and make a decision and feel good about it.
Anger's okay.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to injustice, right? And I must say I haven't completely given it up.
Yeah. It's hard. Well, look, it's hard to if you live
I
just.
turn more into actual action,
Yeah.
actual like political activity, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
I will bring art into that.
Yeah.
So it's okay,
Yeah.
to fight injustice.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Some of my biggest inspirations are very used art for social justice and for political action to get people to act in a way that when they're moving us forward. So,
Anything else you want to talk about?
I'm
It's been like over an hour.
yeah.
No.
Off-camera question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Tell me a fun story about finding something on the streets of Los Angeles, like a good, fun adventure moment, and you found a fun piece of art.
Yeah, I just am not bashful, I've never, I guess my line is, if it's on the curb, it is for public consumption. Like I have not, gone onto anybody's property. I have not taken off anything from anybody's front lawn. But I'm amazed I haven't got into an accident because I'm always scanning the part way from side to side. Probably my favorite LA story is a friend of mine was out walking her dog and she sent me a picture of a piece of garbage that I was so touched that she thought of me, and she said, I will pick this up and carry it home if you want it. And I said, oh my gosh, you're out walking your dog, you don't have to do that.
That's very sweet.
And she said, no, I'm going to bring it home and I'll figure out how to get it to you. And I said, okay, because of that, I will figure out something to do with this. And it's sitting in my studio in a very prominent spot. The things that I haven't quite grabbed me, I put up on the wall of my studio, and that is there. I'm waiting for a lightning bolt of inspiration to use it, but that it just charmed me so much that she would look at trash and she would think of me.
It's amazing. That's exactly what I was looking for.
Yeah.
One other question, we were talking about the kind of charming, beautiful pieces. There was the Let's Dance, I can't recall the official title, but it's this beautiful dance hall, Victorian style, and then you put Let's Dance, possibly a David Bowie quote.
Correct.
Where did you find that?
I found that, of course, at a Goodwill in Burbank.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you bring that piece up. Well, maybe not interesting. It was interesting to me that it was just the image, which is the way so many of kind of Target style paintings are. They're just printed and then glued on a backboard, but it wasn't framed. So I saw it and I just I loved it. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I loved it, so I bought it. But it is a very odd-sized piece, so it took me weeks and weeks to find a frame. And there's certain things I have to carry with me. One of them is a measuring tape, and I write down the frames I'm looking for because I love using vintage frames, So I was actually in Ventura in one of my churches of thrifting, and I found a beautiful vintage frame that was the exact size. I brought it home, I spray painted it. I actually had to build those curtains because it was a little bit too long. And then, I think it's called like Dynatape or something like that little old-fashioned trigger gun that makes those tapes. It just struck me as kind of profound to have that machine kind of spit out song lyrics and lines of poetry, because it's so benign, Like my mom, all of her canisters, flour, sugar, everything had very benign labels, cups, forks, and I just thought, number one, I love that thing as a kid because my mom would always go, oh, make me a label for, the dog food, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, and you do this thing. I realized you could still get those machines, and I thought, all right, I'm gonna turn that machine into a spouter of wisdom, and that's kind of where that sort of theme came from. So a lot of the things in the show were done in that same style, either mostly spouting a lot of poetry and lines from novels and short stories, but a lot of my work is motivated by music and lyrics. So that shows up a lot, and that was that's where that came from.
I saw Road to Nowhere, that's a Talking Heads.
Correct.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Have you ever had someone think you're the creator of the whole piece, something that's super antique-y, right? And then you repurpose. Have you ever had someone think
I've had the opposite, that people have thought I've built things from scratch.
Yeah.
That's
what I mean. Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Yeah, because people will be like, they were amazed at the prices, but then they were, I was under the impression sometimes people thought, like, the Tears in the Rain piece.
Yes.
There's this beautiful to Tokyo.
Yeah.
I think they thought the whole thing was manufactured by you.
Yes.
And I just kept their perception of, and a lot of people, it sold, and a lot of people wanted that too.
Yeah, that's right. I did have, towards the end of the show, there were a number of people who were mad that, they're like, can you make another one? I'm like, no, that is the one of one,
Yeah.
I have to see that.
And
I'm not sure what you're talking
a lot of
about.
young buyers, a lot of the demo was quite young,
Yeah.
appreciative of the
Yeah.
originals.
Yeah.
They totally got it. They were
Thank you for your support.
Yeah, and I got feedback from someone who runs the Mildred Lane Kemper Art Museum at Washington University in St. Louis, one of the best museums in the country for universities, and they love the cones.
Yeah.
Young colleague and they
There you
love the
go.
cones.
Yeah,
There's
there
a
you go.
one man's perception.
I guess that's exactly right. Yeah.
Cool.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
Ren, thank you. I really enjoyed this. I really did. It was such a wonderful conversation. Thank you for inviting me, and I appreciate you giving me this
Oh,
opportunity.
of course, absolutely. Well, it was Mark.
Speed in the minds, brilliant minds, and
Thank you, Mark. You're such a big supporter.
absolutely, I love the arts in LA, and we're in Michael Becker's gallery at the show. Current show. Got your shout out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful large-scale work.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Paintings, beautiful
very much
sculpture, beautiful photographs.
Wonderful.
See it.
All right.
Come on by. Come by, Ted.
All right, see y'all.
Thanks, everybody.